Previously, on The Secret Sits, we began exploring the lives of many students and faculty from Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold have just begun their initial assault on their high school, just in time for one of the school's lunch breaks. And that is where we find ourselves while we pick up our story today. Welcome to The Secret Sits. I'm your host, John Dodson. Join us every Thursday as we uncover the secrets behind the world's most fascinating true crime cases. You can find all episodes of The Secret Sits for free on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you are hearing, reach out to us on Instagram and Facebook at TheSecretSitsPodcast, or on Twitter at SecretSitsPod. Now, on with our story. Eric and Dylan's plan was in motion, or at least they assumed so. The diversion bomb, or at least the largest part of the bomb, the gas tanks, had been moved by a surveyor working in the park. One of the pipe bombs and a spray paint can had detonated, but it only produced a loud bang and a small grass fire. Officials found out about this bomb in the park just 4 minutes before the first frantic phone call from Columbine High School. But Dylan and Eric had no way of knowing that this distraction had not had the results they had planned. The boys believed that the entire city would be moving all of its responding forces to the park by this time, so they proceeded with their plan. They just needed to wait at their cars until they saw the commons explode. Places for Act 2. 11:18. No explosion. The students milled about like it was any other typical day. Many of the students went to their cars and drove away, off to get their Dave's Deluxe Burger or their foot-long Subway sandwich. The boys had to move on to Plan B. Eric had been in the prime position, but he moved across the parking lot toward Dylan so that the two could breach the school together. At 11:19 a.m., the two climbed the building's external steps. From this vantage point, they could see both parking lots and all of the exits on just that one side of the building. They opened their duffel bags when they reached the top of the stairs, pulled out their shotguns and strapped them around their bodies. They then pulled out their semi-automatics and yelled, "Go, go," and then Eric Harris opened fire. Eric shot at anyone he could see, and Dylan fired a few random shots, but stood by Eric, egging him on. Rachel Scott and Richard Castaldo were the first two hit, as they sat in the grass, eating their lunch. Richard was struck in both of his arms and his torso. Rachel was hit in her chest and head. She died instantly. Just that morning, Rachel had doodled a picture. In it, a pair of eyes, crying 13 teardrops, dripping on a rose, which was rising out of Columbine. This would be the same number of victims the shooters would kill during the massacre. Richard lay there in agonizing pain and played dead. It worked. The boys stopped shooting him. Danny, who had been out smoking, began walking up the dirt path to the stairs, along with Lance Kirkland and Sean Graves. The trio saw the gun battle happening, but they assumed it was a paintball gunfight or possibly a senior prank. So they ran toward the shooters, hoping to join in on the fun. Danny made it halfway up the stairs. Eric turned and fired. The flaming hot bullet tore through Danny's left knee. As he began to collapse, a second bullet entered his chest and then a third tore through his abdomen. Lance, who was coming up the stone staircase just behind Danny, attempted to catch his fallen friend, until he realized that he too had been hit in his chest, leg, knee, and foot. Danny's death was almost instant, and he landed solidly on the steps. Lance fell to the side and landed on the grass. He was hit, but still breathing. Sean, whose view was blocked because he was ascending the staircase last, began laughing. He thought everyone was playing, until he felt a shot fly past his neck. And then Sean's brain caught up on the situation, and he turned and attempted to run. But all of a sudden, his back was hurt, and he could no longer feel his legs, and he collapsed. A small group of students were attempting to hide amongst some pine trees, but Eric saw them and began firing. One fell down and played dead. Eric hit another student, but they kept running away, even after being struck with a bullet. Lance was stumbling in and out of consciousness. When he was somewhat lucid, Lance could feel someone just above him, so he reached up and tugged on the pant leg, crying out for help. "Sure, I'll help," came a callous response, as one of the shooters aimed and shot him directly in the face. Dylan walked down the hill toward Sean, who could no longer move his legs. Students in the cafeteria saw Dylan coming, and so they ran out and grabbed Sean. They attempted to drag him inside until an adult stopped them and told them it was too dangerous to move an injured person. So they left Sean at the entrance, propped up against the door. As students rushed out of the building, one stepped on Sean's back and gave a half-hearted apology. Then a janitor showed up at Sean's side. He held on to Sean's hand and told him that he wanted to stay with him, but he needed to help other kids first. So he told Sean to play dead, which he did. Dylan went to enter the building and stepped right over Sean's body to do so. By this time, the entire building, full of students and staff, had descended into utter chaos. Students hid under lunch tables and ran to find places to hide. Coach Sanders had heard the commotion while he was inside the faculty lounge, and he headed out to see what was going on. Adults tried to take control of the panicked crowd and told everyone to run. Coach Sanders directed the kids to follow him up the giant stone stairway in the commons, up to the second floor. There were 488 people who followed Sanders to the second floor. He stood there, directing them to take a left and go down the corridor. There's an exit to the east, away from the senior parking lot. Students entered the choir room and shouted, "There's a gun!" But a few doors down the hall, in Science Room 3, a chemistry test was being administered, and the teacher instructed the students to stay seated and concentrate on their tests. Coach Dave Sanders stayed there at the top of the stairs until every one of the 488 kids had passed by him. As the last of the horde made its way up the stone stairs, Dylan Klebold entered the cafeteria. Dylan could clearly see all of the students at the tail end of the escaping group. He rose his rifle toward them, and then just swept it across the room in a giant arc, once again failing to fire a shot. At this point, Dylan has only fired his weapon a few times. Dylan then turned and stepped back over Sean, still playing dead in the doorway, and rejoined Eric at the top of the outdoor stairs. Dylan was definitely not participating as much as his best friend Eric. Eric was still at the top of the stairs, shooting and hurling pipe bombs at any target he could see. A junior girl named Anne-Marie Hochhalter started to make a run for it. Eric hit her once with a bullet, but she continued running until Eric's second bullet struck her and she collapsed. Another student grabbed Anne-Marie and drug her out of Eric's sight, but then dropped her hand and continued escaping themselves. Just as this hero ducked behind a car in the senior parking lot, a pipe bomb exploded precisely where he had pulled Anne-Marie from just seconds before. The two now realized that all of their easy outdoor targets had dispersed. One last group of students was running toward a chain-link fence which bordered the soccer field. They were too far away to hit with any accuracy, but Dylan fired a couple of shots at the students, bringing the total of his bullets fired to 5. The time is now 11:23 a.m., 4 minutes in. Deputy Gardner was radioed by the custodian the moment he had finished changing out the tapes, and he had observed the commotion out of the windows. At this exact same time, the very first 911 call came in. Gardner drove around the building, and as he turned the corner, he could hear the gunshots ring out, and then a flurry of calls came over his radio from dispatch. At this point, half of the Columbine student body was experiencing the most chaotic thing that would ever happen to them during their lifetimes. But the other half sat in class, wholly unaware that anything was amiss. As Coach Dave Sanders ushered kids to safety, a part-time teacher named Patty Nielsen was conducting hall duty just one floor above Sanders. Sanders' students reached the floor Patty was working on, and they ran down the hallway to the exit door. But Patty was in the next corridor over, and she never heard the students during their harrowing escape. Patty did see a student through the glass panel in the door who appeared to be holding a gun, but Patty thought it was just a prop for a student film project. So she began hastily walking down the hallway to confront the teenager. A junior who was also in the hall at the time, Brian, followed Patty, wanting to watch the confrontation. The doors were a set of double doors, which acted as sort of an airlock. Patty Nielsen pulled open the first set of glass doors, and just as she reached for the second door, Eric Harris turned toward her and raised a gun. He fired and struck the glass. This caused the bullet to miss Patty and Brian, but shattered glass hit both of them relentlessly. Patty Nielsen screamed, and she and Brian hit the floor as the glass shards tore into their backs. The two crawled through the open space to the second set of doors, and once through them, they stood and ran. They ran to the library, where Patty knew there was a phone. The library sat just around the corner, and it took up most of the south hallway, with one wall made entirely of glass. As Patty and Brian ran to the library doors, she could see all of the students diligently working on assignments. She ran inside and shouted, "There's a kid with a gun!" She ordered all of the kids to get down and hide, and she reached for the phone. She dialed 911. Patty Nielsen had expected Eric to follow her and Brian right to the library, but he did not show up.
Jefferson County 911.
Yes, I am a teacher at Columbine High School. There is a student here with a gun. He has shot out a window. I believe one kid.
I've been Columbine High School.
I don't know what's in my shoulder. If it was just the last beat through it.
Okay, has anybody been injured, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the school is in a panic. And I'm in the library. I've got students down under the table, kids. Heads under the table. Kids are screaming. Some of the teachers are, trying to take control of things. We need police here.
Okay, we're getting them there.
Police here.
Who is the student, ma'am?
I do not know who the student is.
Okay.
I saw a student outside. I was in hall duty. Oh, dear God. Okay. I was on hall duty. I saw a gun. I said, "What's going on out there?" And he said, "Oh, it's probably some video production. It's probably a joke." I said, "Well, I don't think that's a good idea." And I went walking outside. I could see what was going on. He turned the gun straight at us and shot. And my God, the window went out. And the kid standing there with me, I think he got hit.
Okay.
Something in my shoulder.
Okay. We've got help on the way, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Stay on the line with me.
Oh, God. His head's just Yeah.
Do we know where he's at?
I'm sorry?
Do we know where he's at?
Okay. I'm in the library. He's upstairs. He's right outside of here.
He's outside?
He's outside of this hall.
Outside of a hall or outside?
The hall. Of the
Okay.
library. There are alarms and things going off now. Smoke. My God, smoke is like coming into this room.
Okay.
I've got the kids under the table here. I don't know what's happening in the rest of the building. There's also like smoke in the building. I don't know. I'm sure someone has to be calling 911 to fight.
Yes, we've got a lot of people on. Okay. I just want you to stay in the line with me. We need to know what's going on.
Okay.
Okay?
I am on the floor.
Okay. And you've got the kids
in the
there?
library, and I've got every student in this library on the floor. You better stay on the floor.
Is there any way you can lock the doors?
Smoke is coming in from out there, and I'm a little bit. The gun is right outside the library door, okay? I don't think I'm going to go out there.
Okay, you're at Columbine High School?
I got 3 children.
Okay, we got it.
Okay? I'm not going to go to the door to shut the door, okay? I've got the kids on the floor. I got all the kids in the library on the floor.
We have paramedics, we have fire, and we have police en route, okay, sir?
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I can't believe he's not out of bullets. He just keeps shooting and shooting and shooting.
Okay, yeah, we've got a police officer on scene.
I thought it was...
Okay, just try and keep the kids in the library calm.
Yeah.
Is there any way you can block the door so no one can get in?
I do not...
Okay.
I guess I can try to go, but I mean, he's right outside that door. I'm afraid to go to the door.
That's okay.
That's where he is. I'm not afraid to go there, okay?
That's okay.
Okay, I told the kids to get on the floor. I told them to get under the table. All of the children are on the floor under the table. Yeah, they're all under the tables.
Okay.
And
as long as we can just try and keep...
No one's saying a word.
Okay, as long as we can keep everyone there as calm as we can.
I hear some yelling out there going on right now.
Yeah, we've got alarms going off now as well.
Yeah, there's alarms. This room is filled with smoke.
Okay.
Okay.
Keep everyone low to the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's up. Okay. Everyone stay on the floor. Stay on the floor. Stay under the table.
Deputy Gardner had pulled his patrol car into the senior lot with the lights and siren on, which had distracted Eric from following Patty and Brian. He opened fire on the officer. He fired 10 rounds at the patrol car. Every single shot missed its target, and Dylan, once again, did not fire any rounds. Eric's rifle suddenly jammed, and as he attempted to clear the chamber, Dylan went back inside of the building. Deputy Gardner fired a few rounds at Eric, but Eric ran inside of the building. The time was now 11:24, 5 minutes into the fray. Now with both boys inside of the building, Eric and Dylan headed off in the direction of the library. Just as Patty Nielsen had run into the library, Coach Sanders ran past the library door, still attempting to get kids out of harm's way. Sanders motioned for the kids in the library to stay where they were and to stay quiet. He ushered another student down the hallway where the beloved coach and the student encountered Eric and Dylan. The murderous pair were walking down the north hallway. Coach Sanders turned to run with the student who was with him, but Eric and Dylan raised their weapons and fired at the pair. Coach Sanders slammed into a set of lockers and then collapsed onto the carpet as the teen he was assisting made a break for it. The student ran into a science classroom and told all of those holed up in the room to hide. But Coach Sanders had not been killed. Eric had hit the man twice. One shot hit his back, and the other went through the teacher's neck, exiting through his teeth. Dylan Klebold then slowly walked over to the devastatingly injured man and tossed a pipe bomb next to him. The pair then turned and made their way back to the library. But Coach Sanders had a will to live. He had a family at home. He had daughters and grandchildren that he yearned to see again. The coach began crawling towards the science classrooms. Another teacher emerged and assisted getting the coach into a classroom where 30 students had been hiding. The group quickly realized that the man was in terrible shape and needed help expeditiously. A student named Aaron Hansey was known to have first aid training. He was an Eagle Scout after all. But he was sequestered in a different classroom in the science area of the school. Despite the riskiness of the situation happening around them, another teacher went to retrieve Aaron from the other classroom to come and help the dying man, who had attempted to save so many others. A fellow student named Kevin Starkey and a teacher called Teresa Miller began administering first aid to Coach Sanders. They used shirts from other students in the room to try and stem the flow of blood from his wounds. And then, when it seemed that help was not coming, the students took the photos from Coach Sanders' wallet and held them up for him so that he could see his family one more time. This was also done to keep him cognizant and awake and attempt to stave off impending doom. "Is this your wife?" they asked as they held up a photo. "Yes." "What's your wife's name?" "Linda." Aaron and Kevin said, "These people love you. This is why you need to stay alive." But eventually the heroic young boys lost the struggle to keep Dave conscious, and he said, "I'm not going to make it. Tell my girls I love them." The kids in the school were now inundating the 911 dispatch with calls. So many, in fact, that some kids could not even get through. Some kids began calling local television stations, and the local anchors began interviewing them live, on air, in real time.
Dispatch Sheriff's Office. Yeah, about 15 minutes ago, I heard 2 loud explosions behind my house, and I heard... Was that shooting at Columbine?
Jefferson County 911, are you reporting the incident?
On the phone at Columbine High School. They cannot call 911. There are shots fired.
Yes, we have one teacher and 17 kids.
Injuries, I have no idea what is going on. 71's under
Closer,
fire.
he's shooting. He's coming up to the door shooting. He's right off of the lunchroom area, back in the cafeteria where they prepare.
Shotgun just shooting.
Yeah. Are you guys in a position to do anything?
4 shots in the cafeteria area. He's coming up to the door.
I got shots going off like crazy.
He's got multiple shots now.
Yeah, he's a student.
And with all of these calls also came conflicting, yet true reports. There were 2 shooters in the parking lot. True. There were shooters in the commons. Also true. There were shooters in upstairs hallways. Also true. But what those on the outside had yet to understand was that all of these true eyewitness accounts were of the same 2 boys. The next police to arrive on the scene was Deputy Paul Smoker, who arrived on his motorcycle unit. Smoker joined Deputy Gardner behind the squad car, and the 2 volleyed several shots back and forth with Eric from behind a doorframe. At this time, police protocol preached containment. The officers on scene broke into groups and spread out to cover as many of the 25 exit doors as they could, but no one moved to breach the building. If a person needed to evacuate, the police would lay down suppressive fire, even though they had no contact from the gunman. Every agency in the area was responding to the incident, and the police had even commandeered a Loomis Fargo armored truck, which had been in the area. The problem was that nobody seemed to be in charge. Some police wanted to take the building, but in the end, they maintained their perimeter. The last gunplay between Eric and officers took place at 11:26 a.m., but officers would not attempt to advance on the building until 12 p.m. Danny's stepsister was still in the building, and she and some friends were about to head off to play some softball when Mr. D saw them. Just as Mr. D started running to the girls, Eric and Dylan rounded a corner and fired shots at the girls. Luckily, the bullets missed and ended up shattering a glass trophy case. But Mr. D ran toward the gunfire and the girls, yelling at them to get back. The brave man ran with the girls down the hall. They ended up at a locked door to the gym. Mr. D pulled out his set of keys, but it was like a warden's key ring, and he didn't know which one would open this lock. Frank DeAngelis was frantic and attempting to open the lock, but it was like a real-life horror movie. until at last he finally picked the correct key and the door thrust open. The group chose a door across the gym, which turned out to be a storage room, and Mr. D unlocked this door and shepherded the girls inside. He told them, "You are going to be fine. I'm not going to let anything happen to you, but I need to get us out of here. I'm going to shut the door behind me. You don't open the door for anyone." He then had the idea that the group should come up with a code word if everything was safe. The girls bickered over what the word should be, prompting a laugh from Mr. D and then the girls. The tenseness of their horrific situation was broken for just a moment in time. If they did not make it out alive, this would be the last thing they would ever laugh about. After leaving the girls, Mr. D opened a door which led outside. There he saw a deputy who ordered him to leave the building. Mr. D protested, but to no avail. He wanted to stay to help, but it was too dangerous. Instead, he took up the task of helping those who had already made it out of the building alive. President Bill Clinton immediately gave a speech on television.
I want to begin by saying that Hillary and I are profoundly shocked and saddened by the tragedy today in Littleton. I have spoken with Governor Bill Owens and County Commission Chair Patricia Holloway and expressed my profound concern for the people of Littleton. I have spoken to Deputy Attorney General Eric Holder, and who, along with Attorney General Reno, is closely monitoring the situation. I've asked the Attorney General and the Secretary of Education to stand ready to assist local law enforcement, the schools, the families, the entire community during this time of crisis and sorrow. A crisis response team is ready now to travel to Colorado, and I strongly believe that we should do whatever we can to get enough counselors to the families and the children as quickly as possible. I know the other communities that have been through this are also ready to do whatever they can to help. I think that Patricia Holloway would not mind if I said that amidst all the turmoil and grief that she and others are experiencing, she said to me just a moment ago that perhaps now America would wake up to the dimensions of this challenge if it could happen in a place like Littleton, and we could prevent anything like this from happening again.
Next week on The Secret Sits, Eric and Dylan enter the library, and all hell breaks loose. The Secret Sits podcast is researched and written by me, John Dodson. Audio engineering by Gabriel Dodson. Original logo artwork provided by Tony Lay.